So, what, 2 or 3 years ago, we went through this a number of times. But Labour cannot just come in and reverse Brexit. We cannot just have another referendum straight away and reverse Brexit. What we always said, and what does appear to be the strategy that Labour are going with, is they are going to, quote, fix Brexit as best as they can. And we've explained it, I don't know how many times. You can only really do so much, but you cannot ever undo any of the damage that Brexit has done to this country. You can only really do minimization at best. And what we have seen from people like Keir Starmer and David Lammy, they have openly said, look, we are going to go, we're going to talk with the EU, we're going to do deals, we're going to do alignment deals, and that is our aim. And the thing is, what eventually will end up happening is even that doesn't fix the problems that Brexit is doing to our economy. And we have also said you cannot have a serious discussion about the state of the UK economy, how you can better the UK economy without talking about the damage that Brexit has done to that economy. The fact that we have closed our door almost on our main market that's right on our doorstep. That was never going to work. And we explained that, I don't know how many times across the years on this channel. But now we are seeing what we've often predicted, that Labour would do these things. They would, as we say, quote, fix Brexit. But as you say, you can't really fix Brexit. But they would minimize as much as possible the damage of Brexit. And then you would get to a point where you can, as a government, turn around and go, okay, this is Brexit. This is it. This is as best as it is ever going to be. Are you sure, British public, that this is what you still want? Now, already we've seen the polls. The British public has more than turned against what Brexit has done. But now you'd have a state where you've got Labour going, this is Brexit, this is as best as it is ever going to get. There is nothing better than this, because you've had hard Brexit, and that did not work out for the economy. This is as best as it is going to be. Are you sure you still want this? And at that point, that is where you can go, we want another referendum. So that does seem to be the direction of travel we are going in. And with the announcement this morning that Keir Starmer has pledged a major rewrite of the Brexit deal, we can see things shifting in that direction of travel. So this, to be honest, is really good news. Really good news for our eventual rejoining. And it has proved a lot of people, including myself, that this was the direction of travel that Labour were going to go in. So I'm really glad that we're going in that direction of travel. But we're going to go get into, of course, the reporting about this in the morning. Like I say, Keir Starmer's over in, I think he's still over in Canada at the moment. But this was announced over there. So this, to be honest, going forward is really good. So we're going to go over his statements and what's been reported and potentially what these major changes could be. But I'd say we'll have to see, I think, what the full, of course, details are later. But certainly alignment, possibly more like deals on different areas. We'll have to see. We know, of course, he's talked about rejoining Europol. That would be a big, massive step forward, especially when it comes to sort of crime prevention. Something which the Conservatives, oh yes, we're the party of law and order, but we're just going to leave Europol. So, and that has had a quite big effect. And of course, our law enforcement here working with, other European, law enforcement agencies would probably be a very good thing indeed. So we're going to go get into this. and see what the statements are. Like I say, I don't think we'll probably see a full thing probably until the Labour manifesto, but I'm fine with that. So, of course, as always, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe buttons. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee. Buy Me Coffee. There is, of course, the YouTube thank you button, and of course the Pony Club down below as well. So, off we go over to here with The Guardian. The title of Labour will seek major rewrite of Brexit deal, Keir Starmer pledges. Keir Starmer has committed to pursuing a major rewrite of the Brexit deal with the EU if Labour are elected, citing his responsibility to his children and future generations. Not a bad thing to go. And I do understand that if you look at the polls, the younger people were at even 2016, the more pro-European they were. And of course, those generations, of course, come into the voting pool. We've said before that if younger generations had been allowed to vote in 2016, it would have tipped the scales colossally in our favor. But we'll see. So the Labour leader begins to unveil his blueprint for power if the party wins the next general election. He told the Financial Times that he would seek a closer trading relationship with Brussels when then the agreement negotiated by the then Prime Minister Boris Johnson comes up for review in 2025. That's something else. This is something else actually that we should probably be pointing out as well, because the deal comes up for review in 2025 as that is right. And this is a time where if we can get Labour in power and get rid of like the vastly, anti-Eurosceptic Tory right, who are going to be pretty much, almost gone from the parliament if we do achieve that massive electoral win for Labour, it's going to make getting a deal through very easily. And remember, most of the Labour Party are very, very pro-European. Very pro-European indeed. But this is what he had to say. Almost everyone recognizes the deal struck is not a good deal. It is far too thin, Starmer said. As we go into 2025, we will attempt to get a much better deal for the UK. Starmer made these comments at a conference of the centre-left leaders, the Global Progress Action Summit in Montreal, where he had a bilateral meeting with the country's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. His trip was part of a worldwide international stage, as Starmer has visited The Hague last week and arrived in Paris to see the French President Emmanuel Macron on Tuesday. And bear in mind, this is setting him up. This, I think, has been recognised that Starmer is probably going to be the next leader of the UK. So he is, shall we say, doing the rounds, being introduced to other world leaders, getting his, face on the world stage, as they say. So the Labour leader said that there is more that can be achieved across the board, which is very, very true, between the UK and the EU in a revised deal on businesses, veterinary compliance, professional services, security, innovation, research, and other areas. He is not wrong. He is not wrong. This is something we have continuously talked about all the time, the amount of stuff that we are missing out from. And the thing is, he's ruling out rejoining the single market and customs union. But as we said at the beginning, that is fine for the time being, because if you were signing all these deals, that's still not good as being in the single market and customs union. So we will get to that stage where Starmer or whoever else might be in charge of the Labour Party at that time just say, look, this is Brexit. This is as good as it is ever going to be. Are you really sure you still want to continue on this? Because if we do, then that means that the UK economy and everything else is still going to be very, very much under pressure, but not as much as it used to be. It's still going to be bad, but this is as best as it is ever going to be. Are you sure you still want it? And I think that is the direction we are that they are moving in. So Johnson's deal is up for review in 2025, but the process is seen more by Brussels as an ironing out procedure. The European appetite for renegotiating a deal that commenced in 2021 is uncertain. That is true. But if you've got Starmer going in, who is pro-European, who wants to improve the UK economy and said, look, we are more than happy to do a deal and work with you, versus what you have had under Boris Johnson, who was like, we do not want to work with you at all. And you've had, obviously, Rishi Sunak come in, who also sea changed on this, being at least slightly more willing to work with Europe. You know, that recognition of, yeah, we can't just ignore Europe. We can't just ignore the EU. But you've got another big sea change with the fact that Starmer is saying, we are ready to work with you and we want to work with you. That appetite going to change massively, I think. So he said, we have to make it work, Starmer told the paper. This is not a question of going back in, but I refuse to accept that we can't make it work. I think about those future generations when I say that. I say that as a dad who's got a 15-year-old boy and a 12-year-old girl. I'm not going to let them grow up in a world where all they've got, all I've got to say to them about their future is it's going to get worse than it otherwise might have been. I've got to get an utter determination to make this work. And here's the thing. You can do all those deals as you want on business, veterinary compliance, professional services, the security innovation. Doesn't matter. Great that you're going to do them. And it will make businesses better at, shall we say, doing trade with the EU. But by no means will it ever solve the deep underlying problems that we are not, of course, the single market customs union. And of course, then we're not part of the EU. Because you will come back to this point of, I've tried to make it work, but this is as best as it is ever going to be. And we have been telling that for a while. But the other reason why Starmer is saying that is he does not want to pour fuel on the Conservative fire. Because remember, in 1992, the Conservatives were in a very similar state, and everyone thought they were going to lose, that Neil Kinnock was going to be the next leader of the UK. But the Conservatives made hay. They managed to say to the British public, look, their chancellor, I can't remember who his name was, is going to increase, bring in another tax bracket. This is going to be really bad for the UK economy. You need to keep the Conservatives in. We are the party of fiscal responsibility. Labour are not. They're going to increase your taxes, etc., etc., etc. They won an election which everyone said they were going to lose. You know, Starmer cannot afford to keep his eyes off the ball. And if you were to turn around and say Labour's going to rejoin the single market and customs union, which, to be honest, he could say that legitimately. Of course, as Leave said at the time, we are not going to leave the single market and customs union. So Starmer is still fulfilling, you know, the will of the people and Brexit, but doing that would potentially pour a lot of fuel on a fire where you don't know how that could play into a general election. And we always have said it on this channel. General elections can become their own beasts, and you do not know what could happen. And a build-up is just as important as the actual election itself. And Labour right now are in a really, really good position to go in and fight a general election. Meanwhile, the Conservatives are not at all. But if the Conservatives got put in that position where Starmer has given them that fuel, then you don't know what could happen in a general election. You might get the fact that all those red wall voters, you know, the Conservatives play on that fear of like rejoining the EU, of all this stuff, you know, and the Conservatives end up keeping the red wall, which might give them enough MPs to either be hung parliament or just keep them in power. We've got to be careful on those grounds. We have to be absolutely careful. This is why he cannot let his eyes off the ball. So just because he's, in the lead does not mean he shouldn't keep his eyes on the ball, on the prize. And as I said before, we who are, lefty progressives here in the UK who want to rejoin the EU, this is the right direction of travel we want to be going in, because we want these deals to be made. We want to do this because this proves our point that working with Europe was never a bad thing, that it was not a detriment to the UK, that it was a massive positive. While the Brexiteers were always like, no, we can't work with the EU. They're far too different. They're not respecting our interest. We can't work with them at all. Of course, they would also turn around and say, "Oh no, we love to work with independent quote, European nations," meaning not the EU. But that's it. So yeah, this is, to be honest, I think a step in the right direction. And like I say, let me know what you think down below. I think this is a really good step in the right direction. Yes, he's ruling out rejoining the single market and customs union. I agree. Not exactly what I would want at this moment in time, but doing an alignment deal, which again makes our case even more better for, yes, it is good for the UK to work with the EU, to be in these structures. And then, of course, that advances the argument of this is Brexit, this is as best as it is ever going to be. Are you sure you still really want this? So that is towards the position of travel we are seeming to go in. And of course, you have a lot more if Labour do initiate this landslide and we do get tactical voting, then especially in Labour and the Lib Dems, we will get a lot more pro-European MPs who will then start to agitate for more and more close relations, including eventually rejoining. That is the direction of travel we look to be going on. So things are going well. Things are going really well, to be honest. And I wouldn't be surprised if today, maybe tomorrow, maybe on Wednesday, we get the Brexiteers losing their mind over this. So be prepared for a very, very panicked and worried Brexiteer response. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.